When I was 21 years old, finishing my junior year in college, my mentor and my rabbi, Mariana Gewurz, was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. I was heading home to my summer internship at Jewish Family Services, and my rabbi asked if I could take on a few tasks at our synagogue that would be hard for her to manage throughout her treatment. I was completing a college Hebrew class and had also spent a few years leading services at Hillel, so I figured that filling in for these tasks was something that I was qualified to handle, and also an incredible mitzvah. And so I began tutoring 2 bar mitzvah students and leading services on Friday nights. But by the end of the summer, it became clear that my rabbi was not going to be well enough to lead the services for these 2 bar mitzvah in the fall. Since I lived in a small town in Ohio, there were no other Jewish clergy around. And our congregation of 100 families would need to rely on its lay leaders in this time of crisis. My rabbi and the bar mitzvah families decided that it was I who had the skills not only to lead services, but to guide these families through this important milestone in their lives. I humbly accepted and set to work, focusing on the tasks at hand. And so went the fall semester of my senior year of college, trips back and forth from school to home and home to school to support my congregation as much as I could. In late fall, I started the process of applying to grad school. I was pretty sure that I would continue on the path of my family studies and social work major and apply for my master's in social work. But many of my mentors, fellow congregants, and friends asked me why I wasn't applying to rabbinical school. That answer was simple. My rabbi was the best person I had ever met. She was brilliant and capable, inspiring and learned, exactly what a rabbi should be. And I was not her. How could I ever be? She was everything, and I was not enough. I worked up the courage to visit my rabbi as her health began to rapidly decline. It was so hard to even ask her if I could come over, for it was the first time that I would be in the presence of someone so close to the end of life. Would she even want to be seen? And if so, why would she want to see me, to spend her few waking hours with me? But when I visited, she was happy to see me and really interested in talking. I told her what others had been asking of me, and I asked her if I should apply to rabbinical school. She told me that she wasn't going to tell me what to do, but that she believed in me. And if this was the path I would choose, she would be happy to write my letter of recommendation. I was honored that my rabbi believed in me, but still not convinced that I had what it would take to follow in her footsteps. So I applied to both the School of Social Work and the rabbinical school at Hebrew Union College, and I told myself, I will let the admissions committee decide. If I meant to go to rabbinical school, then they'll accept me. My rabbi died a few weeks later, on December 12th, 2003. Writing my recommendation for rabbinical school was the last coherent thing that she did. A few days after the funeral, my rabbi's daughter called to tell me that my rabbi had willed her entire rabbinic library to me. And I was called to interview for rabbinical school a few weeks later in the first days of January 2004. To say the least, I grew up and matured tremendously in those humbling, terribly sad few weeks. From within a period of mourning, I prepared for my rabbinical school admissions, and I faced the questions and insecurities: should I be a rabbi? I cannot possibly be a rabbi. Spoiler alert. I was accepted to rabbinical school. While it is quite often that I am humbled by my path to the rabbinate, what I have learned to understand is that it is not only my calling, but who I am meant to be. My guess is, and studies back me up, that almost everyone here has felt these feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt before. They don't just creep in when we are young and figuring ourselves out. There is a name for this syndrome. It was coined in 1978 by two clinical psychologists, Pauline Clance and Susan Imes. It's called imposter syndrome. People who suffer from it feel that they will never be enough and that they do not deserve the success that they have achieved. It's a persistent internal sense of being a fraud, despite any success achieved in that area. We actually give voice to such a self-assessment every Yom Kippur. Our practice and our liturgy demand it of us. We lower ourselves as mortals, we beat our chests, we fast, we wear burial shrouds, and refrain from pleasure. We recite the words before the communal confessional: God, hear our voices. We are not so brazen-faced and stiff-necked to say to you, Adonai, our God, we are righteous and have not sinned. Indeed, we have sinned. We admit that we have not been who we are meant to be. But the truth is, we don't just feel like imposters one day a year during Yom Kippur. Dayenu, that would be enough. But research has shown that as many as 70% of us have felt this way on a regular basis. We may have felt like an imposter at work when we've been called upon to give a presentation, to take on a new role, or stand in for a supervisor. When we are asked to step up to support or fulfill a need, we say to ourselves, what could I possibly have to offer that might help? We feel like imposters within our family roles and relationships. We don't feel like adequate parents, or we don't feel worthy enough to have such a wonderful partner. We even feel like imposters within our own chosen hobbies and passions. Last year, I trained to run the Boston Marathon, completing the same training miles and enduring the same harsh winter weather as every other marathon runner. I even exceeded my charity fundraising goal. Yet on race day, when I showed up at the start line, I pretended like it was another training run. I couldn't possibly be running the Boston Marathon. I didn't deserve to line up with the world's most elite runners. And this year, I do have an urge to run again, because completing it once would just be a fluke, right? This one will actually prove that I can run a marathon. We even feel this imposter syndrome when it comes to practicing Judaism. We fear that we are bad Jews or not Jewish enough. And I can say, as a child of interfaith parents, that I used to call myself half Jewish because I assumed I wasn't as Jewish as those who had two Jewish parents, which of course is not true. Imposter syndrome is no stranger to the Jewish psyche. Perhaps the most common story is of Moses, who, tasked by God to lead the Israelite people, replies, "No, God, I have never been a man of words. I am slow of speech and of tongue. Please make someone else your agent." And when God and Moses ask Aaron to be the high priest to lead the people in sacrifices on the Day of Atonement. Aaron argues, "Who am I, an idol worshiper? I have failed with the golden calf. Who am I to offer sacrifices for anyone?" And the 12 scouts from the book of Numbers who have been asked to preview the promised land before the people enter, they return saying, "We cannot go into this land. It is inhabited by giants. We look like grasshoppers to ourselves, and so we must look to them." And then there's Queen Esther from our Purim story. Mordecai asks her to stand up to the king and reveal her Jewish identity in order to save the Jewish people. At first, she refuses, and she points out how no one would dare enter the king's chambers without being summoned. So who is she to do such a thing? For some, these insecurities are debilitating, deeply personal, hurtful. They creep in to affect the rest of our lives and our self-confidence. We inhabit many spaces where we feel like we are not enough. The worst comes when we feel so strongly that we spend our energy trying to be something else, someone we are not. And so this Yom Kippur, let us look at our tradition in a different way. Even though we do want to and need to embrace and adapt change, as Rabbi Sisimoin taught us, we can also do so in a way that doesn't make us feel that we are inadequate. Because it's also important to remind ourselves that we are enough, that we are inherently worthy. So I have a few suggestions. Reconsider our perspective, the way we view ourselves. If we look to the Jewish practice of Musar, the values we cultivate in order to improve our lives, the virtue or the midah on hand is called anava, humility. According to Rabbi Simcha Bunim, every person should have 2 pockets. One pocket with one piece of paper that reads, "I am but dust and ashes." And in the other pocket, a piece of paper that reads, "For my sake, the world was created." When we're feeling successful, we should celebrate and be grateful with humility. But when we're feeling like an imposter, we should boost ourselves up and remember how important we are. The key is to strive for balance between these 2 extremes. I do not matter more than anyone else, and I am uniquely valuable. Surround ourselves with those who affirm us. Our ancestors had it right. In their moments of insecurity, Moses, Aaron, the 12 scouts from the book of Numbers, and Esther, they all looked to God and others for affirmation. God says to Moses, who fears his speech impediment will hinder his leadership, "Who gives humans speech? Is it not I, God? Now go, and I'll be with you, and as you speak, my words will flow through you." And the Midrash tells us that God encourages the scouts in the book of Numbers who are lacking confidence because they think they look like grasshoppers. "Do you know what I made you seem in their eyes," says God. "Who is to say that to them you are not angels?" And Mordecai tells a fearful Esther to consider a different perspective. "Who knows," Mordecai says, "perhaps this is just the reason that you became queen." When we ask the question, "How can it be me?" it is God and our loved ones who will answer, "Why not you?" Lean into the gifts we already know we have to offer. Perhaps our own expectations are different than the ones that others or God have of us. Nothing more is expected of us than to be and to give naturally of ourselves. Rabbi Tarfon used to say, "It is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you free to neglect it. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to be everything, but we have a responsibility to contribute what we can to be who we already are. And finally, remember that you were intentionally created. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov taught, the moment you were born was the moment when the universe decided it could not live without you. We do not need to wonder if we are worthy. Thinking that we are imposters does not serve the world. Our talents, our skills, abilities, and even our challenges are uniquely needed by the universe. I am grateful to many in my younger years who saw in me what I could not see in myself. It took much internal struggle until I finally asked the question, why not be a rabbi? And then I became confident I could be a rabbi. I am a rabbi. Sadly, it also took my rabbi's absence and her loss for me to understand that I have the opportunity to carry on her legacy. The truth is that while I was blessed to find my calling at a young age, it is never too late to find our true selves. The fact that God has situated us in this time and in this very place means that we have an opportunity to be present and proud within it. In fact, I believe if God were to answer our prayers and our pleas, address the imposter in our minds, and yes, respond to our sense of insecurity on this day of Yom Kippur, God would say, you are, you always have been, and you always will be enough. Gamar Chatima Tova, this year may we be inscribed for blessing in the book of life, just the way we are. Can you hear Ratzon? May this be God's will.
Can you hear Ratzon?
What are you looking at?
Are you going to make a joke again?
This came from a journal entry this year. Sometimes I need to remind myself exactly of that same lesson. So even though I'm writing in the second person, you, I was writing to myself, but hopefully whoever needs to hear this today, it will land for you. Because you are perfect as you are. You are perfect as you are. Free yourself from all the judgments and realize that you are perfect as you are.
You are holy and complete. You are holy and complete. You are whole and you are pure. You are unique. You are holy and complete.
Loved, loved, loved. You are loved. You are always loved. Loved, loved, loved. You are loved. You are always loved. You are loved. You are always loved. You are stronger then you know you are stronger than you know. All the heartbreaks, all the troubles helped you grow to be stronger than you know.
You're deserving, yes you are. You're just worth it, a work of art. You were crafted to be worshipped, to be adored. You're deserving, yes you are. Love, love, love. You are loved, you are always loved. Love, love, love. You are loved, you are always loved.
Yes,
You are loved, you are always loved.
Can we fill this room with just those words? Let's try it together. Love. Oh,
Love, love, love. You are loved, you are always loved. Love, love, love. You are loved, you are always loved. You are loved, you are always